Oh, hello there. Yes, well, it is the weekend, isn't it? And perhaps inevitably at this time of year I'm got a stinking cold. Thank you, children. You need to stay away from them. They are disease vectors, I'm afraid. It's true. Anyway, leaving aside my sore head, yes, Tory leadership hopefuls, of which there are now two, of course, perhaps one way or another, whether or not they mucked it up with not having a centre-right James Cleverly or not. Debatable, really, but who particularly cares? I certainly don't. Yes, but it's a bit strange. Having spent an entire decade having shrugged off the one nation notions of their own Torydom to get to what most people in the right-wing commentary sphere regard as true conservatism, appears to just be nasty racist, as far as I can make out, but maybe that's just me being cynical. But yes, we have Badenoch and Jenrick, and Jenrick in particular, who appears to be very much stamping down on his credentials. So he's definitely going to leave the EHRC because we can't reform it, according to him, and anyone in his cabinet is going to have the same opinion. That anyone would care this far out from a election is neither here nor there. However, there are of course problems, of which there are two. Number one, the Tories no longer have a monopoly on right-wing nutterdom, if I can put it that way. You can chase 20% of the vote, and if it's just you chasing that 20% of the vote as your kind of bedrock, I pay a mortgage and I don't like change types, then that might well be fine. But there's reform out there, and reform can just simply say, oh, we'll do more right-wing things than you will. Yeah, they can just simply slip round the back, metaphorically, fanar, to people like Jenrick. So Jenrick, there's no point in Jenrick trying to tack right, because he can never outright people like Nigel Farage, because Nigel Farage doesn't have to worry about presenting a credible government alternative in the way that theoretically the Conservatives do. So that's a waste of time, Jenrick, but he doesn't quite perhaps understand that, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But collectively chasing 20% of a very right-wing electorate in terms of the total vote isn't going to win you power. That's not the way the sums work. You can do that with 30%, maybe 31, 32, which is kind of where the Conservatives have been for about the last 20 years, but you sure as hell can't do it with 20, and you sure as hell can't do it when 5% of that 20 are guaranteed to vote reform no matter what. So where do they go? Well, the answer is, well, they go into those things that haven't worked in the past, those bright new ideas like getting rid of the EHRC. So the latest one is to go back to this notion of a Bill of Rights, which even Liz Truss regarded as being a complete waste of time. Now, so we get to the Bill of Rights notion. Well, let's have a think about that, shall we? Because if you think about logically where we are with human rights legislation, whether or not, you buy into it, most people that don't buy into human rights legislation don't really understand that it's about, giving humans rights. They don't really want certain people to have rights, even though they are human. Boo hiss. So, yeah, we might well have this new spurious notion of a Bill of Rights, but it presents all sorts of problems. And what Grant Shapps and some of the others, for example, had in the last Parliament was this idea of making Parliament sovereign, so that, for example, if I'm very unhappy with what the government does, I can always complain to the government about it, and they'll make a decision as to whether or not I'm right. You can see how wrong that is. Yeah. It isn't going to work. It isn't going to work. Can't get it past the Lords, and if Liz Truss says it's unworkable, it probably is. Anyway, on that bombshell, do have a lovely weekend, and bear in mind what your rights are. Stay warm, dry, and not unwell.